There is too much noise right now to think clearly. Not just information, pressure, urgency, a constant pull to react before anything has settled. Most people can feel something shifting, but they can't locate it, so they reach for whatever gives them a sense of ground, even if it isn't real. You can feel when you're doing that, the small adjustment where you reshape what you're seeing just enough to stay comfortable. That's where distortion begins. Not because you're weak, but because what's being exposed is moving faster than your ability to integrate it. Exposure is happening in real time. Integration is not. And when those two separate, something in you starts to fracture. Not out there, but in here. Because once you can't trust what you're seeing, you start reaching for something else to hold on to. A narrative, a position, a belief that gives you back a sense of control. But most of those aren't chosen because they're true. They're chosen because they reduce pressure. You already know where you're doing that. That's the place this is asking you to stay. Clarity is not neutral. It costs you the ability to lie to yourself. And there is a point where seeing clearly stops feeling like insight and starts feeling like loss. Most people step back right there, and that's the moment everything turns. Structures aren't just failing, they're being revealed. And once something is revealed clearly enough, it doesn't function the same way anymore. That's what you're feeling. Not just change, but the loss of assumed ground. Because if what you were standing on isn't solid, then your orientation was never coming from truth. It was coming from agreement. This is where most people leave themselves. They soften what they see so they don't have to feel it, or they amplify it into fear so they can justify reacting to it. Both are exits. Both avoid the same thing, staying present with what is actually happening without altering it. There is a way through this that doesn't require panic or withdrawal, but it is not comfortable. It requires you to remain in contact with reality, even when it doesn't give you anything back right away. No resolution, no reassurance, no immediate meaning. Just truth, without buffering. This is where the language of resurrection gets distorted. People want something new to rise, but they don't want to look at what they're still carrying that can't come with them. That's the real threshold. Not what's happening around you, but what you are unwilling to release because it still feels like identity, safety, or control. Resurrection is not a glow-up. It is what remains when everything false is no longer sustainable. And that includes parts of you, patterns, interpretations, ways of relating to the world that only worked when the structure around you held them in place. Those don't collapse gently. They fall apart in your awareness. And once you see them clearly, you don't get to go back to not seeing them. That's the part most people are trying to avoid. You don't need to rush to rebuild anything. In fact, rebuilding too soon is how the same structure returns in a different form. What matters now is whether you can stay long enough to see what is still standing when there is nothing left to hold you up artificially. Because what's real doesn't need reinforcement. It becomes visible when everything else fails. And that's where movement changes. Not because things are fixed, but because you are no longer moving from something that isn't true. If something in this spoke to you, you can go deeper with the full written piece on Substack at tendingtheinbetween.substack.com.